Welcome to the League of Free Worlds Information System.
Welcome, future viewers, to the final installment of my Colony Wars series. There's still one leg of the campaign to go, and we still haven't even seen everything, which I will explain a little bit later. All of these missions that I'm about to show you are critical missions. If you lose at one of them, you get the Lost at Sol ending. Let's take a quick look at that one. So it's pretty important to be able to avoid point defenses of capital ships towards the end. Otherwise this will happen.
Successful escape. Separation.
It was something we should have known. The Empire could never afford to be defeated in its own system. Draco might have fallen to the League, but Sol was not negotiable. The Empire would rather die struggling than allow the League to wrest control of the Earth. So the League fled, sealing the warp hole as it went. With that action, Sol was consigned to a slow and lingering death. Reports were hard to come by, as we tried to satisfy ourselves with our grim victory. But they said that inside the ruined star system, a civil war was raging. The mighty Empire was tearing itself apart, fighting over the scraps that were left. It was no more than it deserved. And yet, should we have dispensed such a cruel form of death on our enemies? So many of them were loyal to the Empire by birth alone. Were they inherently evil? Whatever we felt, they were truly suffering now.
That was the canon ending. That's what leads to Colony Wars 2, where you play as a pilot of the Colonial Navy.
We could feel the heat of Sol as we drew close to the Earth. This was the place our ancestors had set out from so long ago. Now, though, the Earth signified nothing to us except tyranny and oppression. It was a war that left a legacy of pain and destruction. Now it was within our power to consign centuries of genocide to the wastes of history. With one final assault, we could avenge our forefathers and destroy the Empire forever. That was what we believed and what we hoped for. It was up to us now, and us alone.
Let's do better than the ending that the story went with,
descent
shall we?
sequence has now been triggered. Coordinates and automatic target points have been located and logged. Battle units in transit from outlying barracks are reporting at short intervals. Heavy bombardment of enemy craft in the vicinity of Earth is continuing. Attempts are being made to stifle the supply of military craft to hostile air bases. A Navy carrier craft of substantial capacity has been identified in the Earth zone, close to the planet's moon. It is loading a cargo of high-velocity fighters for use in close battle situations. You are required to approach the space station where loading is currently underway. The carrier and enemy fighters in the vicinity are to be destroyed. Good luck.
I think it's neat that we finally get to see a dedicated carrier ship, considering how important fighters are to space combat in this game. We also, as they suggest, get to see a new Navy fighter. Just in case we thought that the Spectre was their last-minute innovation in fighter technology, now there's a little bit more.
Gotta take out this carrier. This could be tough. Let's go in slowly.
It's not a bad idea to deal with at least a couple of these Typhoons first. These are not what I would call fully activated. We'll see their real behavior later. Most likely they're being piloted by people who know just enough to stay alongside the carrier and take the Typhoons to wherever they're going to be given to their actual pilots. Well, that's pretty bad luck for them, I guess. I also really like the touch where there's one or two that are just grappled and being towed by the carrier. Although apparently still being piloted since it can do a little bit of evasion. Once again, bad luck. Well, it's war, what you gonna do?
Get that carrier.
Yes, sir. Well, the carrier doesn't fire its capital beam too often. That's more or less the thing that distinguishes it. Also, its capital beam is not too powerful. So I can mostly get away with just doing a damage race here. Although, good policy is to stick with a technique that allows me to avoid most of this stuff. Because, as you've just observed, I'm going to need those skills. I'm really glad those collisions don't actually deal much damage to my fighter, otherwise something like that would be annoying. And now we gotta take care of that last Typhoon. That's not too difficult. The Eclipse has its flaws, and I will discuss those shortly, but the grapple is a very nice addition for dealing with situations like this.
Nice work, pilot. Mission complete.
Jump sequence initiated.
I also kind of like the mission design overall, so that when things are going well, you get missions like this, like going after supplies or catching carriers towing craft instead of fighting them head to head. That's what you can do when you have an advantage, I guess. Protector of Innocence? I don't know about that one.
The League is now attempting to take decisive action in the region of Earth. Navy forces are defending in substantial numbers. However, intermediate reports indicate that a lack of organization among some enemy units is allowing League forces to advance further. Fierce retaliatory measures are evident throughout the Earth zone. Units must endeavor to break through cordons and concentrate the final assault on Earth itself. Intense enemy action is reported in a region bound by the Earth and its moon. Titan craft are present in this area. If we are to weaken the enemy force significantly, these Titans must be destroyed. Engage enemy units and ensure the destruction of all such craft.
Now, the Eclipse, as I have sort of discussed, is the newest, shiniest, most technologically advanced fighter craft they have. As a result of this, they've done a military sort of thing and overused it. A bomber would be much more useful in this mission, for example. A demon would be great, although I would settle for a chimera. A hydra would also be good. Triple lasers? Mwah. Very, very useful stuff. Instead, we've got the Eclipse for all of the Sol missions, and I really wish we didn't. Oh well, nothing we can do about it. We're just a pilot. We don't have any say in this sort of thing. The funny thing is that because I can succeed at these missions, they'll say, oh, that proves that they were right, and using just this fighter was the right decision. Oh well. Oh well. Now, these are the fully activated Typhoons, and if you let them get a chance, they will fire quite a lot at you, or whoever else they might be aiming at, and they are very maneuverable. The good news is that none of them are going after our own capital ship, so we don't really have too much of a time limit except our own health to deal with this. And this particular Titan must have been hit somewhere important because its point defense guns don't even work. That makes the mission of killing 2 Titans not that much more difficult than killing 1 Titan. Also, don't use your plasma torpedo on this one. I figure, even though it doesn't actually make a difference, shooting the engine a whole bunch seems like a pretty decent idea. By the way, if you get too close to the wash of the engine, it will have a visual effect, and I forget whether it damages you or not. Anyway, the Typhoons tend to aim roughly half and half for you and the other Eclipse on your side, which unusually is continually respawning. I think this is the only map in the game where you have a respawning allied fighter. It's pretty useful for drawing attention away from you. Unfortunately not useful for much else, but honestly, being bait is probably enough. Alright, now for the Titan that fights back. We've taken a little bit of damage. Enough that I wouldn't want to take this Titan on in a damage race. So we want to be just close enough that our lasers can hit, and then do a little bit of back and forth to avoid most of the stuff headed our way. By back and forth, I think it's more dignified to move to one side, turn around, and then turn around to the other side when the distance is right for that. Also, there are times when just decelerating to a standstill is actually the best way to go, since they are smart enough to lead you a bit, as you can see right here. There's a few ways to fool them, but it's a lot tougher if you don't have enough distance.
Shields destroyed.
Maybe a better fighter pilot than I can would be able to avoid all that stuff, and I definitely got greedy there. I was too busy fiddling around with that plasma torpedo and stuff, and it didn't do huge damage, I'm sad to say. I think torpedoes are pretty underpowered in this game, actually. Oh yeah, and it's probably best not to stay still for too long at a time. I probably got a little bit too close to the Titan as well. Aside from that, there's not too much to say. You've seen plenty of capital ship fights already. I think my favorite capital ship battles are where there's some extra factor, like they're about to ram something that you don't want to be rammed. That adds at least a little bit of spice to it. And that was the last appearance of the Typhoon. On one hand, I think they could have done a little bit more with it, but...
Fluctuating readings received from remote scanning devices indicate a force of indeterminate strength within the final descent field. Urgent transmissions received from Lee Command suggest that the assault route to be taken is now blocked. A successful attack on Earth is deemed to be dependent on the removal of this unidentified obstruction. Intermittent signal jams are evident. The obstruction is clearly a key command craft, which refuses to engage an attack protocol. Intelligence units suggest that it may be the Tsar's personal Super Titan. However, the existence of such a craft has never previously been verified. All heavily armed League units are required to approach and engage this craft. Its destruction will signal the fall of the Earth Empire. You are required to ensure this scenario prevails.
I think it's pretty cool that you get a glimpse of the Super Titan if you fail as hard as you possibly can in the storyline. Also, back to the Typhoon. It's not exactly unprecedented for an amazing weapon to come out too late to change the course of a war, so I'm not too upset that they handled it the way they did. That's Earth. Earth has seen better days. I'm not amazing at astronomy, but I'm pretty sure that's not its usual color.
And do what you can. Good luck, pilot.
There's the Super Titan. We have 3 dreadnoughts with us. Don't expect them to contribute very much. There goes one. I think the other 2 last a little bit longer. Anyway, the tactic I take is roughly what you've seen before, which is fire a little bit, then move to the side while I recharge and avoid stuff, and then start firing again. Now, the Titan does occasionally fire capital beams at me, but not for very long. I think that those get stronger after it's destroyed the other dreadnoughts that are with you, so don't take your time. Don't quote me on that, though. I don't know exactly how this ship works. Obviously don't get very close to this Titan, because then you won't be able to dodge all those point defense lasers, and there's a lot of them. This is, once again, even if you had a bomber, I don't think you'd be able to damage race the Super Titan. Although I really wish the game gave you a demon for this. It'd be nice to use that plasma cannon at least one more time. And there goes the third one. I find it a little odd that they chose this kind of dull, slow grind music, although maybe the developers didn't intend it for it to be that way, but that does kind of capture the feel of fighting a capital ship in this game. And once again, its final attack was to launch one of its saucer sections at me.
Be assured, pilots, that your efforts will never be forgotten.
Commencing jump sequence.
I think it would be pretty cool if you took almost no collision damage if your shields were up, but quite a bit more if they were down. That's a minor thing, though.
At last, it was time for our species to move on. I suppose there were those in the League who felt pride, but I couldn't dig out such an emotion. I was exhausted. I could hardly comprehend that the war was over, and now I felt simply drained. The unconditional surrender had come from the heart of the Empire. We assumed this meant the Tsar was still alive. But once the drop to Earth had been made, and the League had scoured the Imperial Palace, it brought back only one message. The Tsar was gone. He had vanished. In those months and years following the bloodshed, the people of Sol left their homes and made new lives on the fertile colony worlds. I often wonder whether they find life without the Empire as strange as I find life without the League. Now that the struggle is over and the worlds rule themselves, something seems to be missing. Though it isn't something I'd ever want returned.
Uh-oh, we got a stinger sequence. You only get this part if you never fail a mission throughout the campaign. I'm kind of glad that they went with the Civil War ending instead of the Aliens ending, though. I think the former is more fitting for Colony Wars. And there it is. I think that's the highest rank you can get in a single playthrough. And once you complete the campaign by winning at Sol, you can access the entire mission tree, including any individual mission. And you'll notice that quite a few of these have 5 missions instead of the 3 that we've gone through. That's because a lot of non-critical missions take you to a second mission that you can only access in that way. Although I think a second failure will take you along a plot branch that is unfavorable. And as you can see, once you get to Sol, it's either you fail or you eventually succeed there. There's no further branching from there. Overall, it's amazing the amount of work that they put into this game with all of its branches and all of the background lore. I won't say whether the game is over or underrated. Some of the gameplay is a lot simpler than it could have been, but overall, especially for its time, I think they did a pretty good job with it. Now let's take a look at the entry for Earth.
The Earth is the Empire's seat of government. It is of immense symbolic value, as well as being the center of the Empire's military and political power. It is a rock planet, largely covered in water, which was once rich in resources. Systematic extraction of all sources of fuel have left much of the planet sterile, although its wealth remains vast due to the removal of resources from the colonies. All human life can be traced back to origins on Earth. The colonies were established to support life on the planet once its own natural resources have been completely exhausted. The discovery of the drug fluoraldic thorophosphate, commonly known as anti-age, boosted the average age of the Earth's population within a generation. Resource depletion reached epidemic proportions concurrently. Starvation and chronic overcrowding followed. Satellite holding bays were built to house excess humanity in barbaric conditions. Insurrection was anticipated, resulting in a massive expansion of the Earth's military and law enforcement capabilities. However, the artificial atmospheric simulation procedure, perfected by Oxylex Corp in 3046, led to the possibility of habitable colonies on Mars. The Institute for Off-Planet Development stated, "The Martian surface will lend itself to the extraction procedures used on Earth for so many years. Now our workers can live there too. We must proceed with this project, or die."
Earth's defenses are the subject of much debate. Hidden matter shielding is likely. Intensity readings are off the scale. Therefore, very little information can be provided. All other factors are unknown.
Pretty intimidating, I think. Well, Colony Wars 2 is a possibility for this channel. I'd also like to do some Armored Core Silent Line. I enjoy that a lot, but, well, we'll see what I do next. I'd also be interested in hearing what the viewers have to say about what they'd like to see in this channel. Well, later everyone.